I hate being afraid. There's an inescapable dread that lingers over me. It moves through me. No matter what I'm doing or what I'm saying, I feel it. I go to bed every night and wake up every morning with needles in my heart. And I think the reason why is because I'm so concerned with what other people think of me. It makes sense, right? Being a YouTuber, I have to be aware of my audience, what they want and what I can and can't say in front of them. But it goes deeper than that. It's a fear of what people in general think of me. Not just people who like me, but people on the outside. And maybe it's natural. We're social creatures and we desire social interaction. We want others to love us and to feel loved ourselves. That's why I don't believe people when they say, I don't care what others think about me. As much as you can say that, we know it's not true. You know it's not true. Everyone cares. As someone somewhat in the public eye, everything I do is scrutinized. Every word I say in my videos or in a stream, every time I type in any chat program, it's all recorded and analyzed by people who sometimes want nothing better than to find some reason to hate me. It's not as easy as just not saying anything bad. It's that anything I say can be twisted or taken out of context or be made to sound like some terrible thing. And it's not just people being upset that bothers me, it's the things that they accuse me of. Sexist, racist, Nazi, pedophile, and it just digs at me. But what can I do about it? See, this is the thing that I don't understand. What am I expected to do? Apologizing doesn't matter, and what would I even be apologizing for? An apology is an admission of guilt. If you didn't do any of these things, why would you say that you did? And if you made a joke with a friend and something off-color you said was recorded and placed elsewhere and was made out to be this big racist thing, what would apologizing for that even mean? Isn't the idea of an apology to say that you know that you did something wrong and that you won't do it again? But how can someone live like that? How can I live in this constant state of anxiety and fear, knowing that anything I say could be recorded and scrutinized? And we're talking about private things, or things that are supposed to remain private, like talking to friends. Is that what's expected of me? Constantly being on edge, constantly being timid and soft-spoken, even around the people that I like, because I don't want to say anything that could possibly offend anyone, even though none of them are supposed to hear it? I don't have real conversations with people anymore. I don't open up to people anymore. Because now when I'm talking to someone, all I can think about is this person going to decide that they don't like me someday and bring chat logs where I say something people see as hateful into the public eye? Because it happens. We see these screenshots of chat logs that were supposed to be private all the time. You may trust your friends now, but what about in a few years when they decide they don't like you anymore? That's the level of distrust that it builds. And you can't talk in public spaces at all. I can't even feel safe around a group of friends. How could I talk to strangers? And it's not that I'm that distrustful of everyone, but I still have to be wary of these things. I have to speak like I'm at a business meeting at all times. I'm afraid of people. I'm afraid of offending or upsetting everyone so much that I just avoid people. We've had this push for equality. And of course I want equality, but at some point equality began to mean that you aren't allowed to do or say anything that might upset people who are different than you. And I've become so accustomed to this that I treat women or people of color different than I would than if they were white males like me, because I'm so afraid of offending them in some way. But that's not equality. I would imagine that anyone different from me wouldn't want me to treat them differently. Wouldn't they want to be treated as if those differences didn't matter? Isn't that the point? But I find myself unable to befriend people who are different than me because I've become so accustomed to treating them so formally and so politely. And I'm afraid that if I don't do those things, I'll be seen as racist or sexist or some kind of phobe. And that thought actually makes it kind of true. When you try so hard not to be homophobic or transphobic that you actually become afraid of those people and the consequences of some perceived slight against them. You know, people talk about social justice a lot, and they talk about this culture of outrage. They talk about how the far left is such a bad thing, but seldom do I actually hear why it's so bad. For a long time, I wanted to know what the appeal was. I wanted to know why this idea of harassing or shunning people who didn't align with this ideology was becoming so popular. And it's hard to pinpoint what that ideology even really is, but it has a lot of tenets that sound good, like equality and acceptance and tolerance. I don't really consider myself an advocate of social justice, but some of these ideas do align with what I think is good. I want equality of opportunity for everyone. That is, I don't want factors like race or gender to affect how others are treated legally. But what really is social justice in practice? Is it when people can't find a legal way to criminalize someone, so they attack them with social pressure instead? Isn't that more like social vigilantism? Is this okay? Isn't the idea of being liberal to accept things that we don't understand? Legality isn't always the best way to know if a situation is right or wrong, but we can use it as a judge in that if someone is allowed to do something legally, then they shouldn't be shamed for it, right? People are still allowed to have different ideas, aren't they? They're still allowed to voice those opinions. Shouldn't different opinions be met with debate instead of an attempt to silence or undermine the arguments with attacks to the speaker's character? And what mental gymnastics must one perform to think that it's just to try and end someone's career based on their different opinions? I have a fear that I'll never be able to find a real job. I'd be afraid that people would find out about my social media and some of the things that I've said that aren't so politically correct. So, do I not say anything? Do I never speak my mind? What about actual injustices that I think need to be corrected? Should no one question them because it's not politically correct to do so? How do we advance? How do we continue to improve as a society if everyone with an opinion dissenting from the status quo is silenced? You know, this whole social justice movement has been so counterintuitive in a lot of ways. It's made itself into a villain. It's united people against it. It's created counter-movement groups who are far worse with the bullying and harassment and trolling than anyone was before the social justice push. Even I have avoided saying things because they were too social justice-y. And some of these big companies have come on board with social justice, so I have to be concerned about being banned from sites for saying mundane things. YouTube age restricts videos if people complain about them, even if those videos have already been manually determined to be fine. Twitter and YouTube both ban people for having certain political views. And sure, some of these may seem hateful or tyrannical, but some of them might be good ideas too. And isn't restricting freedom of thought and opinions the most fascist thing that you can do in the first place? And what is it for? What is the end game? To force people to live in a state of fear, in a state where they can't say or do anything without being scrutinized and antagonized and shunned and hated and risk losing their livelihood? Is all of that worth some people not getting offended? Is it now considered a right to not have people disagree with you? And I was never the kind of person to go out of my way to offend people. Of course I don't want to say things that cause people distress for no reason. But the cost is now that I'm always in distress. I don't know what other people are thinking or how they will take something. So am I expected to not say or do anything? The world is not fair, so we take it upon ourselves to try to make it fair. But in order to give to someone, we must steal from someone else. Is that fair? Speaking of taking from others and of age-restricted and demonetized videos, I want to just give everyone a reminder that I do have a Patreon. I pretty much rely on it and Twitch now because YouTube doesn't really pay anything anymore. So if you want to pledge $1 or whatever a month, I would really appreciate it, and it's at this point kind of necessary if I want to continue working on YouTube as a job. If you want to come by and watch me on Twitch, I stream every weekday from 9 p.m. to 1 a.m. Eastern. Thank you to everyone here who already does support me, and you all have a wonderful day.